Imagine this scenario because it is the ultimate American fantasy. You are 45 years old. It is a Tuesday. You sit down at your kitchen table with a glass of wine and your checkbook. You write a check for $42,000. It is the last of your savings, the scraping of your emergency fund, and the remnants of a small inheritance. But it feels good. You put it in an envelope, mail it to the bank, and take a deep breath. You have done it. You have paid off your mortgage. You own your home free and clear. The deed is yours. You feel a wave of relief wash over you. You sleep soundly that night believing you have just made the safest, smartest, most responsible financial decision of your life. But fast forward 6 months, you lose your job, the economy turns, and your industry gets wiped out. You have zero income. You look at your bank account and it is empty because you sent all your liquidity to the bank to pay off the house. You need to buy groceries. You need to pay the electric bill. You need to fix the transmission on your car. You look at your walls. You know, there's $500,000 of equity trapped in those walls, but you can't eat drywall. You can't pay the mechanic with a brick. You go to the bank to ask for a home equity line of credit, and they laugh at you. We can't lend to you. They say you don't have a job. You were sitting inside a pile of gold and you were starving to death. This is the liquidity trap. By obsessing over being debt-free, you have mathematically guaranteed your own fragility. You traded your liquid options for a gold star on a credit report, and in doing so, you lit hundreds of thousands of dollars of future wealth on fire. My name is Bobby, and I spend way too much time thinking about the emotional lies that prevent us from optimizing our financial lives. If you are someone who is currently paying an extra $500 a month toward your mortgage principal because you want that feeling of freedom, or if you have a low interest rate but still feel guilty about carrying debt, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out, because today we are going to slaughter one of the most sacred cows in personal finance. We are going to talk about why paying off your mortgage early is often a mathematical disaster. We are going to look at the concept of dead equity, the power of inflation arbitrage, and why keeping your mortgage forever might actually be the safest thing you can do. Here's the thing about the pay off the mortgage movement. It is driven by emotion, not math. It is driven by a visceral fear of debt that stems from our grandparents' generation. In the 1930s or the 1980s, when interest rates were double digits, paying off debt was survival. If your mortgage is 14%, paying it off is a guaranteed 14% return. That's a no-brainer. But we live in a different mathematical reality today, even with rates fluctuating. If you are sitting on a mortgage with an interest rate of 3, 4, or even 5%, and you are aggressively paying it down, you are essentially investing your money into a savings account that yields 3, 4, or 5%. That is the return on investment of paying off debt, the interest saved. Now, ask yourself, would you voluntarily lock your money up in a savings account that pays 3% and has a massive penalty for early withdrawal? No, you would say that's a terrible investment. You would say, I can get 5% in a money market fund right now. You would put that money in the S&P 500, which historically returns 8 to 10%. By paying off your mortgage, you are choosing a 3% return over a 10% return. You are voluntarily accepting a lower yield on your capital because the word debt makes you uncomfortable. You are paying a fear tax. Let's dig into the concept of arbitrage. This is how banks get rich, and it is how you should think if you want to be wealthy. A bank borrows money from you via your savings account at 5% interest and then lends it back to you via a mortgage at 6% interest. They keep the spread. That spread is their profit. You can do the exact same thing in reverse. If you have a mortgage at 4% and you can invest in the market at 8%, the 4% spread is your profit. It's free money created by leverage. Let's use concrete numbers. Say you have $100,000 extra cash. You can either pay off $100,000 of your 4% mortgage, or you can invest it at 8%. If you pay the mortgage, you save $4,000 a year in interest. If you invest, you earn $8,000 a year. The difference is $4,000 a year, compounding forever. Over 30 years, that decision to invest instead of pay off the debt is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. By paying off the house, you are killing the arbitrage. You are firing your most productive employee, leverage, and deciding to do all the work yourself. Now, you might be thinking, but Bobby, debt is risk. What if the market crashes? And this is where we have to redefine what risk actually means. Most people define risk as owing money. I define risk as not having access to money. This is the liquidity risk argument. When you pay extra principal on your mortgage, that money disappears. It goes into the equity of the house. Equity is dead money. It produces no cash flow. It cannot be spent. It sits there doing nothing until you sell the house or borrow against it. But borrowing against it is difficult when you're in financial distress. Banks lend money to people who don't need it. If you lose your job, your credit score tanks, or the housing market crashes, that equity is trapped. You are house rich, but cash poor. Compare that to the person who kept the mortgage and put the extra money into a brokerage account. If they lose their job, they can sell some stocks. They can pay the mortgage for 5 years using their liquid assets. Who is safer? The person with the paid-off house and zero cash, or the person with the mortgage and $500,000 in the bank? The person with the cash is safer. They have options. They have runway. The person with the paid-off house has a roof, but they have no engine. If they can't pay their property taxes, which you still owe, even if the mortgage is gone, the county will take the house anyway. So, the idea that a paid-off house guarantees security is a myth. Cash guarantees security. Liquidity guarantees security. Paying off the mortgage destroys liquidity. This gets really interesting when we look at the role of inflation. Inflation is the enemy of the saver, but it is the best friend of the debtor. When you take out a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, you are locking in your housing cost for 30 decades. The principal and interest payment never changes, but the value of the dollar drops every year. In 2025, you might be paying $2,000 a month. That feels like a lot. It might be 25% of your income. But in 2045, due to 3% annual inflation, $2,000 will have the purchasing power of roughly $800 today. Your income will likely have doubled or tripled. You will be paying off the loan with cheaper dollars. The bank is the one losing on this deal. They lent you valuable dollars in 2025, and you were paying them back with worthless dollars in 2045. By paying off the mortgage early, you are destroying this advantage. You are paying the bank back with valuable dollars today instead of paying them back with cheap dollars tomorrow. You are giving the bank a gift. You should drag that loan out as long as humanly possible to let inflation eat away at the real value of the debt. The mortgage effectively gets cheaper every single year without you doing anything. Let's talk about the opportunity cost of the extra payments. This is the invisible wealth that you never see because you destroyed it. Let's say you have a $2,000 mortgage payment and you decide to aggressively pay an extra $1,000 a month to pay it off in 15 years instead of 30. You feel virtuous. You feel like Dave Ramsey would be proud, but let's simulate the alternative. If you took that $1,000 a month and invested it in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund for those same 15 years, assuming a historical 10% return, you would have roughly $400,000. But wait, you keep going because you didn't pay off the house. You keep the mortgage for the full 30 years. You keep investing that $1,000 a month for another 15 years. At the end of 30 years, your investment account is worth nearly $2 million. Meanwhile, the responsible person who paid off the house early has a paid-off house worth maybe $800,000. Appreciation happens regardless of the mortgage and zero investment account. The difference in net worth is over $1 million. The decision to rush the mortgage payment cost you $1 million. That is the price of your peace of mind. It is a very expensive luxury. And here's what most people don't realize about the psychology of the paid-off house. We think it unlocks freedom. We think once the house is paid off, I can invest. But life happens. Parkinson's law kicks in. When you no longer have that mortgage payment, you don't usually sweep that money into investments and you upgrade your lifestyle. You buy a boat. You go on nicer vacations. You absorb the surplus. By keeping the mortgage, you enforce a forced savings discipline, not in the house equity, but in the fact that you have to budget for the payment, which keeps your lifestyle consumption in check, allowing you to invest the surplus elsewhere deliberately. Furthermore, having a paid-off house puts a massive target on your back for lawsuits. If you get sued and you have 100% equity in your home, that is a juicy asset for a creditor to go after. If you have a mortgage for 80% of the value, there is very little equity for anyone to steal. The bank technically owns the house, which acts as a form of asset protection. You look poor on paper, high debt, which makes you unattractive to litigation, while you keep your real wealth liquid and hidden in brokerage accounts. We also have to address the tax implications, although these have changed. It used to be that the mortgage interest deduction was a huge reason to keep debt. With the higher standard deduction in 2025, fewer people itemize. So, I'm not even basing this argument on tax savings. Even without the tax deduction, the math of arbitrage and liquidity still wins. However, if you do itemize, the government is essentially subsidizing your rate. If your rate is 4% and you're in a 25% tax bracket, your effective interest rate is 3%. That makes the hurdle rate for investing even lower. It makes holding the debt even more profitable. Now, I know the counter-argument. I can hear the comments already. Bobby, you aren't factoring in risk. What if the market is flat for 10 years? What if I retire and can't make the payment? These are valid emotional concerns, but they are solved by the liquidity buffer. Remember, in the investing scenario, you have a massive pile of liquid cash growing on the side. That pile is your risk mitigation. If the market is flat, you still have the principal. If you retire, you can use the investment income to pay the mortgage. You can create your own synthetic payoff. If you have $500,000 in investments earning 4% dividends, that $20,000 a year pays the mortgage for you. You are mathematically debt-free because your assets cover the liability, but you maintain control of the principal. That is true financial independence. Handing the principal to the bank means you lose control. It means you are asking permission to live in your own house. The only time, and I mean the only time, it makes sense to pay off a mortgage early is if the interest rate is significantly higher than what you can earn in the market. If you have a mortgage at 8% or 9% in a high-rate environment, then yes, pay it down. That is a guaranteed 9% return. That beats the market. Or if you are incapable of saving money, if you know for a fact that if you don't pay the mortgage, you will spend that money on jet skis and shoes, then pay the mortgage. It acts as a forced savings account for the undisciplined. But if you're watching this channel, I assume you were disciplined. I assume you were trying to optimize. For the disciplined investor, low-interest mortgage debt is an asset. It is a relic of a low-interest era that we may never see again. To pay it off early is to destroy a valuable financial instrument. You are throwing away a below-market loan that allows you to leverage your wealth. This requires a shift in identity. You have to stop viewing debt as a sin. Debt is a tool. Corporations use debt. Governments use debt. The rich use debt. They use it to amplify returns. They use it to maintain liquidity. Only the middle class is taught that debt is evil. We are taught to rush to zero. But zero is a dangerous place to be. Zero leverage means zero amplification. Zero liquidity means zero options. So here is the actionable step. Stop paying extra. Take that extra $200 or $500 or $1,000 that you are sending to the mortgage company every month. Open a separate brokerage account. Call it your Freedom Fund. Set up an auto draft for that same amount into an S&P 500 index fund. Watch that account grow. In 10 years, compare the balance of that account to the interest you would have saved on the mortgage. You will see the math with your own eyes. You will see that you were tens of thousands of dollars richer. And more importantly, if you have an emergency tomorrow, you can access that money. You can't access the extra payment you sent to the bank last month. That money is gone. We need to stop optimizing for sleeping well at night based on outdated boomer logic and start optimizing for sleeping well at night because we have a fortress of liquid cash that can handle any crisis. A paid-off house is a trophy. A massive investment portfolio is an army. I'd rather have the army. If this video made you pause that extra principal payment, share it with a friend who is obsessed with being debt-free. Help them see the math. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.